Hey everyone, so you're going to have to deal with the washing machine again today. Basically washing clothes is all I do. I wash clothes and I make videos. Today we're going to have a video about the Days of Wine and Roses because it was requested by somebody several times. Days of Wine and Roses is not a song I particularly have in my repertoire, to be honest. Obviously I know it well enough to be able to busk it on a jam or whatever, but it's not really a song I've gone into tremendous depth with. However, it seems to be quite popular with guitar players. There's some notable examples by Herb Ellis, Wes Montgomery, Pat Martino, and so on. So I'm just going to go through the melody of this tune to start off with. It's always good to start with the melody because the melody tells you what the changes do. And I think like very often in the olden days, when I was a young and callow jazz nerd, I would tend to learn the changes first and then see how the melody relates to the changes. And actually that's exactly backwards. You should learn the melody first and then see how the changes follow from the melody. And then it's a lot easier to remember how the changes go, but also reharmonize the song as you see fit. So it's a nice melody. We have that initial leap of the sixth from the 5 to the 3 of the key. And then, so the first phrase is really pentatonic and rooted very much in the F major tonality. So it's that sort of very solidly F major kind of sound to it. Couldn't be much more obvious. And then we get, So the first bit goes. Okay. And that second phrase really puts us in the sort of realm of G minor stroke B flat major 7th, which are really just the same thing, right? As far as we're concerned. The difference is mostly in what the bass player plays. Okay, so it's a subdominant tonality away from F major. You can hear that very strongly in the melody. Yeah? You can put that over the F. Wouldn't quite fit because part of the reason it's that prominent fourth, which doesn't appear in that basic pentatonic scale, really pushes us into that subdominant realm. And then of course we get, second time it's a flat 6. So the whole thing goes in. And that flat 6 introduces a bit of what we might call modal interchange colour. You know, we get the flat 6 on the minor key in the major key. So you get that G half diminished or B minor 7 flat, B minor major 7th with the melody, which is an A on top. So that's a very strong sign of what we might call borrowing from the minor key. Of course, Barry Harris would understand this as being part of the Barry Harris major 6th diminished scale, which has a flat 6 in it. The right key. And certainly I think the flat 6 is probably the most predominant accidentally I like to find in a major key. It seems to be really, really common, and I think it's because of that very poignant kind of 4 minor sound. So we're already starting to think about changes. The melody just tells us, okay, and then we get another bit which goes one on the second, which is kind of a slightly unstable note over F major. So there's nothing in there which doesn't really belong to the sort of one sort of part of the scale or key or whatever, but that kind of also has a slightly exotic quality because we start on the 9th or the 2nd, which is a slightly unstable note. So that kind of keeps us away perhaps from that very obvious major tonality we have in the first part of the melody. You know that. Saying it wrong actually. I think. and then ya da bo da bo da. Again, we get the fourth. That was it. Ya da bo da ba da ba da da bo ba do ba do da. So ya da da bo da ya da ya bo bo da, and we get that sort of fading sound. Very common in an ABAC song, which is what Days of Wine and Roses is, to have a slightly unsettled note at the end of the first half. It just kind of sets it up. But if you just go back to F, again, it introduces a sense of finality, which we don't necessarily really want. So, okay, so that implies kind of a dominant sort of feeling with kind of. So if I was to reduce the melody down to like, 4 chords, sorry, the accompaniment. So I'm just blocking out very simple foundations here, right? Okay. And then we go, second half, right, same. That's the first time the seventh of the key has really been prominently featured, the E. So that's all very much in the one area, apart from that E, which is a little bit kind of ambiguous as to where that's sitting. It's kind of a slightly tense note in some ways, but it could also go with the one. So usually that at the end of the C section in an ABAC song, we get some sort of turnaround in the harmony. I'm not going to dwell too much on what that is. So we've understood, really by doing this, we've understood how to solo on the tune to some extent, believe it or not. So if I sort of play, tonic, okay, subdominant, subdominant minor, then back to 1, then back to C7. And then so kind of turn around. Now there's two little sort of bits of detail which I haven't covered in that, but can you see like how it's building up, how we're just going to start with the melody and we're building up the rest of the changes. Now an obvious way to get into G minor and starts to use the secondary dominant, such as D7. So, so that's a bit longer than that though. So yeah, excuse me. And then we go, we have this sort of move, kind of sits on 1-ish, and then we get, it's quite nice to put G7 there, it doesn't interfere with the melody, so let's see what the melody does. Yeah, just put it there, just before the C7, so it's kind of quite old school. It's kind of very old-fashioned, but this is an old-fashioned tune. Second half. Okay, so what happens there? So this is a 2-5-1 for now, okay? So, now, people who know this song are going to go, you missed out 2 key pieces of detail. But what I want to do is I just want to build up from the functional perspective so you see what's underlying it. So, what we have now, if I play the second half, second half, right? So we end on the 1 because the melody ends on 1. Because that's generally how standards end. They end on 1 most of the time, unless it's Stella by Starlight or something. So we're starting to block out that functional basis of the tune, which I think is helpful. Okay, right, here's the two, there's 3 quintessential bits of detail. I'm going to ignore the one that probably everybody knows best until the end, because it's not actually that important. So the first thing I want to draw attention to is the move to a minor key. So we go, ba ba da 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 da, ya da da ba do, ba da da de oh, not that one. Ya da boom de de da bo da da yo, bo ba ya da do de. So there's a quick tour. Da boom ba ya da do de. Now this is a move that you get in dozens of tunes. So the relative minor, in this case D minor to F major, sets up a 2-5, but with the 5 chord being basically 2-7, dominant and the dominant, yeah? So 6-2, and then 2-5, you know, it's such a common move. This comes up again and again. And, old versions of tunes such as Lady Be Good that feature like a 2-7 chord often have this kind of little move to relative minor thrown in as well in later harmonizations because it sounds very bebop. So if I go to stops it sounding so old-fashioned. Now there's something else, another little trick that people often do is this descending bass line. So on G minor. So boom, 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 da boom, boom, ba da 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 ba boom, boom, boom. So yeah, so that little move. I'll play that again. G minor. Fills up those bars very nicely. So yeah, ba bo da 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 do, ya da da ba do, ba da da ba do, ya da bo da ba da bo da de o, bo ba do 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 de, bo ba do do bo ba. The second half and ba bo ba da de o, da o bo de o, ba do de da do. So doing that, that's 1. You can do the classic job of moving it over to a sharp 4 chord, and this is something that's a great trick. So, so we're on the 7th. So sharp 4 minor 11th works great. I mean, technically it has a flat 5 in there as well, but we don't really play it on the guitar. So we go 3, so sharp 4, 7, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1, long turnaround, right? So this is basically tonic, and this has still got a tonic function, this chord here, the A minor, still kind of, and then subdominant, and then 1. So there's something to do when you've got loads of tonic and not much in the way of anything happening. You can also play B flat minor there, which is quite an old school thing to do. But that would be B flat diminished then, wouldn't it? Because of the E, so maybe it doesn't work as well. Now you can do the for the end chord of a standard where the melody usually ends on note 1 of the key, you can use a flat 2 or even a flat 6 chord to introduce a bit more motion. Right, the last chord that I want to talk about, which probably everybody's going, why are you going to talk about that chord, is of course the E flat 7 sharp 11, which is in bar 2. 2 or 3, 4, bar 3, sorry. 4, 2, 3, 4. Well, to me, that's simply a passing chord. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So you go ba 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 ba. It's like the remnant for walk down, but you don't do the whole walk down. You just do the flat 7. And this is a chord which is very common in, I think, post-war jazz. Really, it crops up in. If I transpose it to this key, there we go. I can't. That's it. Yeah. Yeah, bo ba ba bo da da do ba da ba da ba bo do. Okay, so like third, all that kind of stuff. But I mean, there's no reason why we couldn't just use a 2-5-1. Boom, 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 boom. So it's just simply a moving chord. That works just as well. But E flat 7 has a bit more grit to it because it's got the flat 5 of the G minor key. It's a slightly more interesting sound, a slightly more old school sound, but it's the same job. So I mean, there's no reason why you can't just go. So for that second chord, just playing half diminished. So you know. So hopefully that kind of explains where the changes come from. Really, it's just 1, 6, 2, 4 minor, which is like really common chord progression since the age of the dinosaurs. And then, you know, 3, 6, 2, and then move to relative minor, 1, and then 2 minor, 5, 7. Yeah, ba, da 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 ba bo, then to G minor, ya da da ba do, ya ba do, 4 minor again. Ya da bo da bo da bo da bo da. Ya da. Long turn around. So I mean, ya da. I suppose you could try and get a longer turnaround in there. So that sort of major sits around like a lemon. It's one sort of thing, by the way, to bear in mind. You don't want to return to the F too much. That's why instead of going back to the F, you know. Go back to A minor. So it's a melody quite well as well. That won't really work, will it? Yeah, boom. No, I don't think so. Yeah. But trying to find something else to do. Maybe that relative minor might work. Oh, sorry. You know, it's kind of how I play it. I think, you know, just trying to think about those broad kind of key areas and focusing on them when you're playing changes. You know, it's quite long though, isn't it? how I do it. Hope that's some help.